Hey, Laura J, Peaceful Inner Warriors United founder and guide through this experience of connecting us with those who have important messages to share, such as Bobbi Rowntree, who has a theory about the connection between psychic abilities, mental health, and homelessness. So we just had our call, but you are going to get to watch it after this. So, Bobbi, what would you like to share to help people come on the journey we're about to go on with them?
Hello, everyone. I'm Bobbi Rowntree, born medium. Thank you so very, very much for offering me this forum, Laura. It's just wonderful. I am a born psychic, have been that way since birth, and I have found that if I could have very easily fallen under the mental health cracks, very, very, very easily, but if I hadn't known what I was, and I believe that most of us don't know what we are. We have no idea that we're psychic and that each and every one of us has a psychic ability within us. And therefore, we ignore the psychic centers and think that they're a mental health issue. And that can lead down some pretty horrific roads for people. And that's why I'm here to try to help people not go down those roads and to maybe find their way into their particular individual path.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for guiding us and facilitating your wisdom and knowledge today in the call that we had. You're going to get to check it out. So enjoy that experience, and we will share when the next opportunity will come. I think a lot of us on this call are the black sheep of the family or the orange amongst apples. And
Yes.
it's Donald, it's fantastic to have you here in Ontario as well. We've got a wide mix here, and I do want to get us into the call so that we can hear Bobbi's theory on the connection between homelessness, mental health, and psychic abilities, because I do believe that it very much is connected to part of the reason that at this moment I'm actually planted at Soul's Path Retreat Center, just coming to work on the Hub for Humankind, which is a retreat conference experience that we're creating for May long weekend on the 17th to 19th, where we're calling for leaders and not just leaders that identify that way, but ultimately we're all leading our own lives. We are the authors of our own story. And when we take back our power with our pen, then we can actually make the changes that we desire. So, Ernie, I love seeing you and your lady in the screen sharing this experience together. And Rose just got here, who was the friend that I had mentioned would be joining in. So, now that we've got a full house, Bobbi Rowntree, I would love for you to give a introduction to yourself and what has really called you to this time, and then we'll get into the topic at hand.
Alrighty. Okie dokie. My name is Bobbi Rowntree. I call myself born medium. That's what I call myself on my YouTube channel and all my things. I was born a medium. I am psychic. I actually hear in my head grossly so, which is kind of true, grossly so. For myself, at 7, I was told that I had schizophrenia. And luckily, my grandmother was in a coma at the time, and she entered my body and talked to my parents. And I know that sounds odd, but it does. Yeah. Anyway, it is what happened. And my parents kind of kept that from me till I was 16, which I think it was the right thing to do, in my opinion, because I wasn't mentally ready to know what I was. And even then, I didn't know what I was, because then at 16, my father passed away. And then I started to kind of see a little bit of what I was. And by the time I was 27 years old, I took myself in hand. And in fact, actually, a psychic took me in hand and told me I was being selfish and horrible, and that I needed to develop my gift so that I could help other people talk to their dads too. Because I would talk to my dad all the time. I actually never felt like he left. I just felt like he just left his form. So for me, death, psychic abilities, things like that are incredibly natural. And if I hadn't started to move in that sort of way, I believe that I would either not be here anymore or I would maybe be a homeless person as well. Because when I see homeless people, because I can actually see psychic energy on people, I can see it. And sometimes I can see things that they are talking to that other people cannot see. And a little part of me wants to run up to them and say, "Oh my God, I see it too. You're okay." But I don't know what's happened to them in that time because even as myself, as a person who I constantly have to look to the light, I constantly have to ask for them to protect me from what I am able to do. And if I do not, if I let things like alcohol get in the way, or if I let my own emotions get in the way, I can actually invite in a lot of dark stuff, a lot of dark stuff that distorts. I actually used to, before I opened up at 27, I used to get intoxicated and leave my house late at night and walk on the streets looking for people to talk to.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, and actually, Mary, what you say about being the black sheep, I call it the rainbow sheep. I think every
Oh, I love that. Now I'm gonna have to get a rainbow sheep.
yeah, a rainbow sheep. I should make those darn things actually, because
Yeah,
I
I have a
believe
sheep, but not a rainbow sheep. But anyways,
you can dip it. Because the rainbow to me is also the chakras, and the
I
chakra.
could, I could dye it. I know how to dye fabric.
Here
I'm
you
gonna
go.
show.
I dye rainbow sheep, your sheep. Because the rainbow sheep is put into the family because we actually all rest with our DNA. When we cross over, when I see the other side, I actually thought it looked like campgrounds. And then I saw the DNA helix and went, oh, for Christmas sake, it's DNA. And that's actually who we get stuck with.
Bobby,
So,
I have to just say one thing. I don't want to take over because don't let me. But I had a visitation when I was 7, and I noticed you did too, right? It was
there's,
like unbelievable. Like everything went white. I was crying. All I did was as a kid was cry. And they kept saying, "Don't cry, stop crying. You got to listen to this. I don't want you to forget this." And your parents don't, basically the message was your parents don't own you. You're in control of your life. Which I didn't feel like that. I felt like I was some kind of slave. I don't know what I felt like. I was told I had a lot of women in my life and like sisters and grandmothers and everybody was always telling me what to do. And it was like, God, get me out of here. But that visitation was so profound. I couldn't like I can't even describe what it was like. Everything was just so bright white.
yeah, because I think it was angelic. You're a Reiki master, for goodness sakes. You're a healer. They are like the kings of the healers, or the queens, or the people of the healers. But actually, when you think about, there are pinnacle ages, 3, 7, 9. If 3, everybody's psychic till 3, or grossly psychic, because, and I believe actually the fontanelle closing is the crown chakra closing up so that you become more here than knowing who you were there. And for some folks, it becomes a deterioration. And like what we said, we actually pick our parents. We pick our
Oh
parents
yeah,
because we
that's
come down here with an agenda, with a thought in our head of what we want to achieve for ourselves and how we want our soul to grow. So we can pick suffering in order to figure out that soul growth. The problem is, I think now, is that we so quickly take anything that is unusual or abnormal and we try to make it go away. We try to make it stop. We try to make it go, and then we start medicating folks. And when we start medicating folks, they actually don't know how they're being spoken to because certain things are being turned off. And I actually think, and it's funny how actually what they're putting in my head too, because they're always putting things in my head. I run psychic fairs here on the island, and I had a gentleman come up to me when we were cleaning up at the end of one, and he was quite obviously a homeless man. And he said, I don't want to bother you. I have no money for a reading. He said, but I want to know, do you see people around me? And I said,
oh
I can tell you, yes, I do. I see a lot of people around you. And he said, oh, thank you. Thank God. And he walked away because he just needed
oh
to know
me
that it was true. And he needed to know he was psychic, in my opinion. And I think every one of you is as well. You just have an ability that gets balanced, or you have an ability that gets unbalanced and you are dealing with it right now.
yeah.
So, Bobby, when somebody does enter into a state of unbalanced, where the reality that exists in the literal world is now overlaid with the mythic, symbolic, and energetic levels, that are now being talked about in relation to all of them coexisting simultaneously. Mitch, I'm just going to mute you out there unless you have something to say. And Mary Ellen as well, unless there's something to share. I'm just going to say maybe we'll just keep it muted so then Bobbi can share. And then we'll have more of a open Q&A and kind of get to keeping it focused, because it's very easy when you do have a lot of voices and then when you do have other voices as well. So just for the sake of letting Bobbi share the theory, and I'm just going to ask that we respect just kind of keeping the attention on Bobbi for this time, and then we'll get back into more of a group experience rather than making it a group experience the entire time, which I hope feels respectful, because that is my intention. I just want to make sure that it's not a competing voices conversation in our heads as well as in the gallery, because Zoom is difficult when there's multiple voices that are speaking at the same time sometimes. So really want to have the conversation open, and I also am really curious and keen to better understand that mental health, psychic abilities, and homelessness connection, because I think that it's really pertinent to the times that we're in where psychic abilities are expanding. I am just going back to that question around what do you do when there is an imbalance, and the distinguishment or the distinguishing between the literal and the other layers kind of overlap.
Okie dokie. And actually, I will go with what the voices in my head are showing me. And I call them the voices in my head, or the powers that be, and I'm clairvoyant. So I say voices, but then they show me pictures. So but I hear things as well. They show me rooting, which that's what I would say to anyone. If anyone came to me and said, my head is swimming, I'm getting this, blah, 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 I'd say, you got to sit down and you have to root. You have to ground into the earth, because that is actually a little bit part of the problem, is that when you're very psychic or you have a lot of stuff going on here, and then you come down here, you forget that you have to be here in order to hear. Hey, that's good. I didn't even know about that.
Brilliant.
It's true. It's absolutely true. That's actually how I took control of it. Because as a child and throughout my teens, it was that's what it would sound like. And I would see these things flying at me and screaming and yelling, and they look like Sesame Street monsters, which that's when I see homeless folks, I'm like, you're going through that. Because you can actually even hear it like, and the people around you, well, for myself, the people around me would actually go on a different timeline. And I know that sounds odd, but they would be talking to me and trying to talk like this, and they would either go or like I was completely in a different zone than them. And I was so lucky, because my parents kind of went, actually what they would do is go sit in the corner in the dark and rock until it goes away. That's what my parents did for me. And in my opinion, it was the best thing they could do for me, because they didn't know what the heck was going on. So they just backed away. But parents now, they did take me to the doctor. The doctor said, hey, let's medicate this child. And my parents said, we're poor. It's not going to happen. So thank God I picked poor parents who were really young, who didn't want to deal with stuff. So they would just shove me over there. Thank God I picked them, because that way I could navigate it for myself. But nowadays, it just, everyone wants to be normal. And we're not normal. And we're all getting way more psychic. Those feelings you get inside of you, those little, and when you talk about different waves and things, it's difficult, because each one of us sees things differently. Everybody is psychic in a different way. Like the way my voice sounds, if I had a twin, their voice would be different. So their psychic abilities would be different as well. So you actually have to look into you and find the you. Yeah, homeless people. How do we help the homeless people in this? I want to say we stop medicating them, but can you even, no one would agree with me, especially people who work with homeless people. But it could very well be what we're doing to help them is actually deterring them from what they need to know about themselves. And maybe we've been ignoring our psychic abilities for, what has it been? 1,000, 2,000 years now we've been ignoring our psychic abilities, actually taking them away from ourselves and putting them into other things, believing that that is where the power is, when the power is right here. Completely and absolutely, this powerless feeling that we have on the earth is ever so prevalent. And yeah, okay, addiction. They want to talk about addiction in this because addiction is a really, really, really strong leeway into homelessness. But addiction comes when the person is able to become addicted. Does that make sense? The actual pathway is made so that an addiction can come through. And okay, they want me to tell you my absolute truth, and it might sound crazy. So I actually believe that there are forces that are up here that we need to ask to help us. And I believe there are forces down here that want to deter us, that want to stop us from our path of good, that actually want us to not help each other, that want to feed off the misery, the selfishness, and the desperation that we have when we do not feel that. And I believe very, very, very strongly that we have actually kind of packed our society in this way so that we worship things that are here and we worship things that are lower and do not serve us, like we worship money. Okay, yeah. The first three chakras I call the earthly chakras. They're the primal chakras, I call them. They are money, sex, and power. And that is what we really, really, really concern ourselves with. And we all wonder why our heart chakras are ailing. It's because we're putting everything into the lower chakras rather than the upper chakras. You actually balance these and then move into these and allow these to grow and grow and grow like you're a tree. But we don't do that here anymore. I don't know. I actually just heard in my head that we never did. that this is just the way it's always been. And now we're evolving and growing, and we all know about each other now. There was a time that people in one country didn't know that other people in another country existed. We know how everyone exists. We're shocked when we find out things now about our earth that we didn't know. So the fact that we all know each other even makes it more and bigger and bigger. Because even being on here with you guys, I can feel all of you. And in fact, I have to make it so that I don't read everybody because I kind of want to. It's coming out, and because that's what'll happen to me. I'll start picking things up on people, but I know what I am. I know why I'm picking it up. I know who's talking to me. I've done the work for it. If you haven't and you don't know you're psychic, because you're all psychic, every person on this planet is actually a psychic. It's just there's different levels. It's like you could all sing, but some of you want to solo, and some of you, I know, I'd like to just turn your volume down. So I don't know who can sing or who can't, but it comes in levels. So okie dokie. You know, I'm absolutely happy to open up to questions because otherwise they will have me going blah, 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 because it's not just me in here. And see, I sound crazy, don't I?
And you are having a free flow and going where the flow is taking you, which is absolutely brilliant. And Rose just said the systems here are designed to confine, disempower, and create fear. Community is heaven space. Us being here is proof we are one already, or we won already.
Excellent. That is an excellent insight. And it's absolutely true. And yeah, you are all connected, each and every one of us. And when we go to the other side, it's all, that's why it looks like DNA. It's all connected in one way or another. 3 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon is pretty much 3 degrees of separation from each other on the other side. I don't know if you guys know the 3 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon.
Not specifically.
Oh, it's a very 90s, 80s thing. So yeah, showing my age there.
Okay, so Kevin, 3 degrees of separation, Kevin Bacon. I've heard about 6 degrees of separation, and that we're all connected through 6 degrees at some level or another.
Yes. Yes, and every actor is somewhat connected to Kevin Bacon. That's the game we play. Yeah. Yeah, I play with a girlfriend of mine here. But okay, yes. Yeah. And I don't know how to solve it because here, wow. I don't know what it's like in Ontario. I know what it's like on Vancouver Island. And I know what it's like in Victoria. I was absolutely shocked when my kids went to UVic and I went down to Victoria. I could not believe what I saw. Is anyone else from BC, or do you guys have entire streets of homeless people?
we're getting the communities, the parks where people are living in the parks.
Yes.
We all came from the same source. We're always connected. Yeah.
Yeah, I always wonder if it's more common in BC or especially on Vancouver Island because our weather isn't that as bad.
Right.
It's nowhere near as bad. Ask an islander, they'll say it's bad. But if you're from the prairies, which most of us are, we don't get -40 here. We're lucky. Well, we're lucky. We get -10 at the very, 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 very most
Yeah.
for one day. So yeah, being homeless here is a little bit easier, I
The
think.
disenfranchisement of people and moving people towards the city centers, so the 15-minute cities, so that then everything's convenient and it seems in our best interest, compared to the reality that, from my perspective, it's the replication of the downfall of Rome, which was just only the changing contract between an empire and republic. But every transition, there's always the people that are falling through the cracks, because the people are where the profits come in. And if you don't have a problem in our current society, what I've noticed is that you don't have social currency unless you have something you're working on and towards.
Yeah, I would agree completely. And if you don't have a problem with what's going on around you currently, open your eyes. My goodness gracious. And what are you here to do otherwise? Because even well, I know for certain that part of my social contract is you guys. 110%. I'm here for you. I wouldn't have this ability if not. And we all have something that we're supposed to give to the group. Like Mary Ellen has her Reiki. That's her energy healing for the group. I don't know what anyone else has, so that's why I just singled you out. I'm sorry. But we all have something that we are here to give others. And it's a balance too, because I don't know if you ever met a surgeon, but they could cut you up and put things back where they are. But having a full-on conversation, wowzers, my gousers. I have a lot of friends who are surgeons. It's like, wow. There's like, because everybody's got a little something and everybody's part of the group. So I agree completely. Now I'm curious about the 15-minute city thing. When I see it from your eyes, it looks like they would push out these people. And then where the heck would they go? Because if you're homeless, you have to be in the heart of the city in order to access things,
Well, the
correct?
cities this is how people get pushed into the cities. But then look at all the fires and all of the natural devastation that is taking place. But if you actually look at it from a different perspective, there are, from what I understand, direct energy weapons that are actually starting many of these fires, that are wiping out communities that can then be incorporated with different builders. And it actually takes me, in my mind, back to the Great Fire of London in 1666, which is connected to the Sesquivi Trust Act, which was implemented and people signed on to because everybody's birth records had all been destroyed in their family records, in the Bibles, or however they were tracking their family lineage. Those got destroyed in the Great Fire. And so then, in order to actually have record and to then be able to get back that which was burned up in these fires that actually started on putting Lane in what is now called the City Foursquare in London, which is actually a sovereign state within the larger city, this is where we start to see the monopolies of the backside of the leadership model of the current world agendas that do not have our best interest at heart. And the whole concept of them generally is within the concept of the public thing, which is the res publica, upon which republics were built, which is only to draw us into the public. So then we think the public is actually what we are part of, but that's because we have been indoctrinated to be incorporated.
Okay. Yeah, and honestly, again, when I look at it through your eyes when you explain it, it terrifyingly looks like the Hunger Games.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, like they actually take people based on belief systems or what they can do or what their jobs are and put them in those places. And also, and I see it in your eyes too, I see it as though rounding up,
Mhm.
like we know where they all are.
Mhm.
That sort of idea. Yeah. Yeah. And okay, so yeah, okay. Do you think this will increase or decrease homelessness? Increase?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
people lose their homes because the interest rates are going up and the price of everything is going up, and all of the social media resources are designed to put us into a state of fear. So then we're in scarcity and then contraction. So then we're willing to contract compared to expand.
Oh, I agree completely. I will not watch the news anymore because all they do is be afraid of this, be afraid of this, hold on to your money, be afraid of this. This is going to happen to you. That's like, there's good things that must happen. They have to. For goodness sakes, but we don't. It's bad, 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 bad. It's all very fear-based. I agree completely. Absolutely. Now, okie dokie. Drugs and alcohol. That's what they want to talk about a little bit here. Because I think of this as two different things. And when I think about the drugs that are contributing to homelessness, I kind of think they're medicinal drugs. Does anyone disagree?
Any substance that we take in has an energetic frequency of its own that then we're taking in with the substance. And then, from what I understand, there's a frequency net or a consciousness that comes with that, which then becomes the highest we can reach because now we're used to reaching outside of us in order to gain access to the thing that brought us to higher levels. So then we don't think we can reach it on our own. And now we have to turn outside of ourselves in order to get that high.
Which is actually what we all feel we need to do. We always look outside of ourselves for our own pleasure. There's very few of us that will sit down and meditate to figure out what is going on and why we feel a certain way, or stop and say, okay, what is my part in this? There's very, very few of us that can think of that or do that. So yeah, to my mind, that would be, because I believe everyone should meditate, honestly. Absolutely. Why the heck wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to go inside and figure out why the heck you came here? Because it kind of, well, I don't want to say it sucks here, but it can very, very easily suck here. So why did you put yourself through that? Why did you say, hey, I want to go through? Some people, they don't have a choice. I actually will see people being kicked here. Like they're looking and they're laughing at humanity. And then somebody bigger comes along and just goes, bam, off you go. You go see what you can do about it. Things like that. I think some of us are actually here for a particular reasons. I think I am here during this time for this particular reason, to be perfectly honest with you, because I see things that other people cannot see. And I try to say, oh, no, it's this. It's not bad. It's this. That's what I try to tell people all the time. And to the same idea, too, I think that some of those drugs will actually shut down your psychic centers. They'll make it so that your brain goes, I can't see that. I can't see that. I can't see that. And it's kind of the same idea that your brain can only go to here, rather than actually see, hear, or feel what's up there. Because that's what they wanted to stop with me. They didn't want me to see the people anymore. They didn't want me to hear the voices anymore. They didn't want time to change for me anymore, because that made me unusual. It made me somebody they could not understand. So they needed to put me in a place that they could understand. They needed to make me normal, which, yeah, I can't. Yeah, well, I call myself the fairy in the jar, which is pretty obvious that I am like that. I'm very hyper, very, yeah. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about that.
Perfect. Ernie has a question
Okay, awesome.
or statement.
Hi. Hi, nice to meet you. How are you? I'm Ernie, and this is my wife. My wife, Gia. We're a married couple. We're in the Philippines, and she got tired because of the time zone. But we're really enjoying this, and to connect with you, Bobbi, in a nice way. I just had this funny thought that some of the most amazing stories and some of the most amazing literature is really written by people that have the most diverse point of views. And you seem to have such an intelligent part of you that you're so in touch with these sorts of things. I almost wonder if you would be an exceptional author. Have you ever thought about writing some of these ideas down and making maybe a book or a story that would get published into a movie? Because some of the most creative ideas, most creative literature that people are so fascinated in, that people have like a huge appreciation for, come from unique people, because who in the hell wants to listen to somebody that's boring, that's like the rest of us, when a person that's more unique is much more fascinating. I bet you probably have some amazing ideas for a story or a book that maybe could get turned into a movie, and people would just be mystified by it. Now you think about Lord of the Rings, that sold millions of dollars. But what type of a person was J.R.R. Tolkien? He must have been very interesting. And
Oh, he
that's
was.
what kept people so fascinating, like you, Bobby. You know, I wonder if you might have special talent like that, that if it could be, you know, put into words or made into a movie, people would just be so engrossed by the creativeness, because you've got ideas that not the rest of us could think of so easy. But do you see how interesting that makes you as a person? You know, that's really a beautiful side to you, Bob. Well, we would be proud of you, and don't think that Gia, you know, is ignoring you, that she's not interested. She just fell asleep because of the time difference. So that's all that is. She's just exhausted. But you know, but we would be proud of you. I wonder if you've ever thought of a book, you know, or something to be turned into a movie. You know, people would be so fascinated with your creativity. You know,
Well, actually,
um,
my first novel,
I'll mute
I'm
myself.
actually published soon, because I'm actually writing a series of books, and they're called the Rowntree Tea House Tales. So I'm taking my last name and I'm making it into a series of books. So thank you very much. That is actually absolutely what I'm doing. Yeah, I've been writing my whole life. I just never really concentrated. Now, yeah, I've written a book about people like me.
Yeah, well, you know, w- well, it could be a mystery book, or do you like Harry Potter? It could be something like that, but only maybe the people have real abilities. But
Yes.
there's a lot of books that create irony through drama by people that have exceptional talent, that can see things or knows things that other people can't have. I think there's some movies on Netflix about a person that's a psychic that can tell other people's motives and be able to tell a good person from a bad person. And it lends really a great mystery. I
Yes.
wonder if your book could, you know, or your story could be something like that, and that makes millions of dollars, you know, and it's not the fact of the money that it makes, it's the interest that people have in these things. Because to create something beautiful that people are going to appreciate, you can't be the same type of person that everybody else is with the same cookie cutter type of thoughts. You've got to be special, as somebody that's got more insight into things that's different than not everybody is going to know about. And that's what creates the interest. Those movies made millions of dollars, and like millions of people are fascinated with those kinds of concepts. Maybe you're more valuable than you know that.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. That is a really, really sweet thing to say. Thank you. And yeah, I agree with you on that. I think it's the exposure. That's why I am writing these things, so that people can look at it, because I have all these different characters that you could identify with, and a male as well, so that people can read it and go, oh, I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a this, because I try to write about what goes on in their heads to try to link people.
Well, what you'll probably find, Bobby, is there's probably lots of people that have the same thoughts and feelings about things that you do, that can relate to you, that maybe they just haven't spoken up. You know,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people that would show interest in what you would write. You know, I would be proud of you, what you wrote. You know, and it would probably be a fascinating mystery, you know, if you used your mind and intelligence and wisdom, you know, a very interesting story that would have a very unique dynamic that would be different than all the other stories that people would love to hear. You know, that I think you could do it. You know that.
Thank you very much. Yes, I hope that what I have written will start that. And I have 7 books in my head. So you are completely and absolutely on the money, sir. Absolutely on the money.
And actually, we met through your editor, Lynn Thompson.
Yeah.
Was hosting a call, and Lynn is an absolutely beautiful soul, and so she hosts the Art of Departure calls, And then you had done a psychic call where people could come on and you were doing readings for people in the gallery. So that is definitely something that maybe we could talk about doing as well for the Peaceful Inner Warrior United community, to expand your reach and to help more people hear about you. And I just actually wanted to touch on a point that Ernie had mentioned around the concept of good and evil people. Because from my perspective, no one of us is all good nor all evil. There are many of us who have done good things or evil things, or just things that maybe aren't to the spectrum of what we would deem to be evil specifically. But I don't know that seeing people as one or the other is the best way to actually overcome the circumstances that we're presently in.
Oh, that's true. I was just making a reference, not that that is a personal viewpoint of my own, all or nothing, black and white type of thinking, us versus them. I was just merely referencing how the story on Netflix was written by that other author. It's not something that I endorse myself or have feelings of people are all evil or good. Most people are a mix of qualities. We all have good qualities and we all have bad qualities. So the secret is to actually be in touch with people through intimacy and take time to get to know them. Like there was this old gentleman that said to me one time, everybody is a someone and everybody has something to offer. You know, I think when we respond with people with compassion and goodness and patience, you'd be surprised what you could learn from them. You know, everybody has something to contribute. The world isn't black and white type of thinking or us versus them or all or nothing. We all have good things and we all have bad things. People are a blend. You can't think in absolutes. But I was just saying, in terms of how the author of a fantasy story on Netflix had designed his story, you're right. Sometimes watching TV isn't always the healthiest thing because it can sometimes give us thinking that might not always be true, like where it paints a character in a movie as being all bad and all evil. It's not always in touch with reality or the truth. But you're right. But that's not, Miss Laura, that's not my type of thing. I'm just referencing a movie, how the author had written the movie.
And you touched on a pattern that culturally we fall into very easily, which is why movies are written based on that format, is why I mentioned it, not in specifically relation to what you had said in terms of how you said it specifically, but to more so go to the pattern. Because actually back in the days of Rome, villains were of the peasant class, but they were of a slightly higher class than what the fiefs or serfs were. And that meant that the fiefs and serfs were identified by the place that they worked, the land that they worked on. Whereas the villeins then became villains in someone's life when their liege lord or the vassals, which are holders of title that were above them in the hierarchy, then said, go do them harm because they didn't pay their bill. And the villain would then become a villain, or the villain rather would become a villain in someone's life.
I didn't know that, but that's a very interesting historical reference. I didn't even know that where the word came from. You know, that's an educated lady, Miss Laura.
Yeah.
Very nice. I guess in a historical context, like I've heard of things of words being changed, like when the French invented long bows and they could shoot their enemies from a farther distance. They showed their fingers, which was the drawing finger of the bow, and they said pluck you, meaning we can still pluck the bow, and that got changed into a different word that sounds similar. Right. That we can still, don't get too near to our army, we can still pluck you with the bow.
Got it.
We can pluck you up. Sorry.
That's good.
Yeah, so I can understand what you're saying there. but continue,
Yeah.
Miss Bobby, we're really interested in hearing, go ahead.
Okie dokie. Well, honestly, yeah, thank you so much for all your words. And you have, you don't know it, but you really helped me this morning because I was having some stuff about my book this morning. So thank you for showing up and doing that for me. Because I would say between the good and the evil is that we have access to good and we have access to nasty. And it's what you choose to move towards. It's what you choose to allow yourself to be, because I can allow myself to be an ass very, very easily. I actually have a terrible temper. Terrible temper. It will happen like that. And I'll go, oh, what am I doing? Because I will actually wreck something for myself if I do that. I will actually bring down my energy if I do that. You attract what you're putting out. So if you are putting out nothing but crap, you're going to attract more crap, and then it's going to validate your crap. And then therefore people are going to think you might be evil. Does that make sense?
Well, there's probably a lot of ways that you inspire people, Bobby, that you really, really help people. Like, for example, I knew that there was this elderly gentleman that didn't appreciate people who were in wheelchairs because maybe they couldn't use their legs until that gentleman got married and had a child that was in a wheelchair, and then maybe it touched home a little bit more for him that we're all people and we all need to be respected. So you see, in some ways, I think it's good that you reach out because you're very encouraging to people, one of the things I wanted to know is, do you think that when a person becomes homeless, which is kind of a sad place to be, that maybe their psychic ability increases? Because, I remember one time I think I was at the Arby's restaurant, and I saw a girl or a lady that was working there. They had little footprints that she tattooed on her arms, like little bear tracks. And they were interesting. And I asked the lady, I said, well, what are those bear tracks? She said, well, I was homeless. And she said that she lived in her car. And I said, my first instinct would have some compassion and say, I'm real sorry that, and she didn't feel that way at all. She said, oh, no, don't feel sorry for me. It was the best time of my life. So just because a person's homeless, it doesn't mean it has to be a bad experience. In fact, it could be a very exciting experience. And she looked at it as if it was a very exciting experience that, instead of living in a mundane apartment and working a job that's boring and the same old routine. She said that she actually had the time of her life looking back, and that it wasn't scary at all. And that for her, it felt as if it was the most exciting time. And, I noticed on the title of your event, Bobby, you mentioned being homeless, psychic ability, and what was the other thing? Yeah, mental health. It seems as if being a psychic is a gift that you can sometimes have more insight over things than an average person could. So like, I was wondering if you felt that maybe if you were homeless temporarily, that maybe you were able to refine your psychic abilities to where you had something you could take with you after that experience that you felt grateful for, that maybe it wasn't such a horrible experience. Now there's nothing all one way or the other. Some experiences of being homeless would be bad, some would be good, but was there something that you took out of that? And my biggest question is, do you think a person becomes more intuitive, in touch with their psychic ability if they're homeless, because maybe the person has more time to think and they could sit there and people watch and maybe get in touch with a little bit of intimacy with the way people walk or the way they dress or who they are interested in talking to. So there are skills that can, develop, that maybe you could develop skills by being homeless that there'd be no way for you to develop them unless you were, because you'd never have the time to sit there and people watch, And I wonder, because my Aunt Sherry, she used to love horoscope books, and I'll be damned, some of them were dead on, but go ahead,
Well, actually, I think the best example I could possibly give you would be there was a young man who went missing here in our valley and around here, and I spoke to his mother, and then I had him in my head for days. And he asked me to go to the homeless camp where he disappeared. And so I did. Yeah, armed with nothing but where is that? I had a crystal. I had a crystal in my back pocket, and I went into a homeless camp looking for this child's remains. I don't know what I was thinking, but I do stuff like that because honestly, when you talk to the dead, they can be they grab you by the shoulders and make you do stuff that you wouldn't normally do. But I'll tell you, going through there and chatting, certain people said to me, you need to get out of here. It's really dangerous. You shouldn't be walking around in here. And then other people invited me into their tents, which I declined. And then other people, it was like I walked into their neighborhood. And there were dogs, there were things all set up. They had like kitchens set up. They had all of these different little housing sort of situations. So, to my mind, the answer to your question would be the freedom of it. That we, as people who have mortgages and bills and all these sorts of things, that becomes absolutely prevalent in your mind. And then that's all you're thinking about is how to keep on keeping what you got. If you're homeless, what are you going to keep? You're actually just moving and existing and becoming, but at the same time, I'm certain that that woman wasn't lying to you, that living in her car wasn't really a bad experience. It was a learning sort of experience. But I guess, you know what? Comfort does not breed enlightenment. Discomfort breeds enlightenment. To know that you have to change where you are will actually move you to moving into other things. And I think you're right as well, that if you don't have all the distractions, if your TV's not on, and you don't have a TV, if other, my thing is actually constantly cleaning and things like that. I get into these sorts of ways. If I wasn't home, I would actually just sit and meditate. That's all I would do, and do yoga. That would be like, I don't know. I would love to just sit, meditate, then do yoga, meditate, do yoga, repeat for a full day. If I was homeless, I could possibly do that. But would I have a safe place to do it? So I go back and I go forth and I go back and I go forth. It's almost like I've got a group of people on this side who are in agreement with that, and a group of people on this side who are in agreement with that. Because maybe the way we've set it all up has made it so our more free-spirited minds can't do it here, can't exist here, have trouble with the compression of our society, because it is very compressing and it is very conformative. So I could see that. And Tolkien, I'm supposed to talk about that really quickly. If you read Norse mythology, you will know where Tolkien got his material. Very much, very much. So, yeah. And I think he was one of us, because I've read lots of things about Lewis Carroll and J.R.R. Tolkien. And Frank L. Baum comes in there a lot when you're talking. And does everyone know who Frank L. Baum is? Wizard of Oz? Oh, that book. Read. It's a must read. It's an absolute must read, in my opinion.
The Wizard of Oz is actually about the Federal Reserve Fund, because the golden pathway to the Emerald City represents Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, Technicolor being a form of early cinematography where you have, it's something around, it's a specific kind of cinema, where it actually is about the shading of things. I can't explain it well enough to break it down, but the Emerald City, everything is in green. Everybody has to wear green visors in order to be there, and everything in it is all green, because green is the Technicolor color of the Dreamcoat. And that's about cinema and the way things are portrayed. So if you're actually in the Emerald City, where there's a little Wizard of Oz behind the screens that seem very real, except for when you actually step back, and it kind of goes back to earlier, the conversation about the literal level, energetic, mythic, and symbolic levels of life that are happening that overlay what is real. We're dealing with the patterns, which is why earlier I had said about like good and evil, the binary options. And now we have the non-binary option, which in a universe that doesn't disclude or recognize negatives, the non gets removed, and then you're just in a binary state. But thinking that checking that box is different, because now instead of having 2 options to choose for your clothes, now you have 3. And it seems to be equally mental to what the whole natural laws of based on Hermes Trismegistus's work, where the first law is mentalism, where everything is mental, which is then going back to the patterns. We're dealing with ideological state apparatuses that are upholding the ideologies of a culture that requires us give our power away. And
Okay.
go for it.
Actually, that's the book.
Okay.
I actually see, because I thought it was the chakras. From watching the movie and being obsessed with the movie as a child, I thought it was the chakras. Red shoes, Munchkin Land seemed orange to me. Then she went down a yellow road, which is your solar plexus chakra, to your heart chakra, which is the Emerald City. And then the Wizard of Oz takes her up into her throat chakra, into the sky, and blah, blah, blah. That's the way I saw it. So I decided to read the book. And I actually believe Dorothy's dead. I believe that Dorothy is dead, doesn't realize she's dead, and that this is a journey for her to the other side. Because if you read the book, it very much kind of, and but it's a similar sort of thing. Because what you're talking about to me is a reflection of it. Because the way I see it is that Dorothy is seeing the obstacles that she thinks are in her brain, along with the obstacles that the lion and the scarecrow and the Tin Man all see as well. And they keep on bringing obstacles. Every time they come in, oh, this might happen. And then boom, it does. Each time one of them does it until they figure out that they can actually overcome all of these things. So it's a similar sort of thing. And honestly, I highly recommend it. You could probably read it in a day because it's written for kids. And Frank L. Baum wrote it for some friends of his. L. Frank Baum wrote it for some friends of his whose daughter died of crib death, whose name was Dorothy. So that's also, I thought, well, that's kind of on the money too. But I think it's a similar thing, because I've heard that theory as well. And I've heard people talk about it as a reflection of the Nazi movement that was going on at the time. Yeah, not that he was being Nazi-ish, he was showing people what was going on. I've heard that one too, actually, but I haven't heard the evidence of that one that really reached me into the ground.
Well, what you're saying is actually very reflective of the corporate structure generally, because the corporate structure is, we're trained to climb a corporate ladder. But where are you actually climbing to, except for the constructs of the hierarchy within a corporate context? So those ideological state apparatuses are upheld by repressive state apparatuses, which are your cops, courts, councils, crown, all of the things that get their power from the families, the church, the religion, education, social media, sports. Those are all the ISAs, or ideological state apparatuses, that then give power to repressive state apparatuses that are in place to uphold the ideologies. And so it's a cycle that is feeding itself with corporations at the bottom, which literally is corpse orating. Because what you're saying is true. Dorothy became dead when she was led into the underworld of the corrupted system that incorporated her and us all. Until then, we actually pull ourselves out of these states where all of the obstacles will determine our fates.
Okay, yeah, that is an absolute reflection. And when you talk about it in that kind of hierarchy way, I actually even see it as a reflection of the spirit world, to be perfectly honest. But not in a bad way. The hierarchy, I actually see a hierarchy in the spirit world. And we, the living, are at the bottom of it.
You said
yeah,
at the bottom of it?
The living, us. Yeah, and just above us is the dead. And then just above them are our spirit guides, and just above them are the angelic realm, and just above them, that's the way I always see it. And I see the ascended beings in angelic realm like an arch that overarches everything. And for the longest time, I couldn't even see the angelic realm. I would just see a trap door with clouds on it, because they like to move into that idea that they're up in the clouds, which they're not. They're right there. They're and there and there. They're everywhere. They're right here with us at all times. Anyway, yeah.
That kind of reminds me of the concept of the firmament within the Bible, which I'm not biblically versed, but from what I understand, the firmament is talking about the upper and lower worlds. But it's actually talking about seas because it's all about the bodies and then the bodies corporate.
So yeah, I've heard, yeah, that's right. Okay, I studied the Bible in university, and I was sort of just going, I don't know this one. And then when you talk about the seas, it started to remind me of something. But I'm 52, so my university days were about 30 years ago. So I have forgotten a little.
But the firmament is basically what you're describing. It's kind of like the people that are believing in the flat Earth theory, where it's talking about the dome. And I don't know enough about that ideology at all. But when you talk about it, about the structures of the spiritual realm in terms of hierarchies, and it then being a rainbow, it strikes me as being a dome experience.
Yeah, and like Ingersoll, the tree in Norse mythology, where we have Midgard, Asgard, and Valhalla, but there's another, I know, I can't remember the name for some reason, but they have an hierarchy. And this might be an aside, this might be valid or not, I don't know. But the rainbow, been on it, it's on the other side. It's a walkway. It's a walkway you walk to go to the waiting room before you get picked up by your loved ones, because they come get you. So otherwise, where would you go? That's why dementia people have so much trouble. Anyway, yeah, that's another topic. And there's a lot of topics. So.
Really. Rose, you wanted to share something?
Yeah, so I was going off of what you guys were currently speaking on, the multiple perspectives, especially this Wizard of Oz and the homelessness. So I can honestly say I don't actually have a home. So I can speak from experience at the moment. But also what you're speaking on, even with the Wizard of Oz, is a journey through the spirit, but also it's the hero's journey as well. That home is always with you. So again, you're going through the yellow brick road, which actually can be a golden thread back to yourself. Home is where the heart is. The ruby slippers is where, again, where you're grounded at. So all of those things are within the paradigm as well. But we are actually, as you're saying, refractions, each one of us in this that we're residing in right now, and all the timelines that we're in right now. So, but speaking on the whole homelessness factor and the ability and the mental, again, what we see as mental disabilities, or what they label it as, it's literally just people not understanding the spiritual aspect. They're only seeing it from one perspective, or just two perspectives, instead of the multiple perspectives that we have. They're not incorporating the spirit realm into the medical system at all. So we see that they don't incorporate that in. They only treat a symptom of something instead of finding out the root of the issue. And even if it is an issue, because they deem somebody who's schizophrenic and or somebody who hears voices as having a medical issue, right? It's a medical issue, instead of realizing that we're just in another vibration to able to hear and perceive things that other people are not able to hear and perceive. Doesn't mean that people can't, because this is where I was talking about disempowerment, is that people can be empowered. People do have these abilities within them. They are unlockable in every person. So it is, yes, it's unique that we have every person here, but every person is special. Everything has value. Everything has purpose here. There's a reason for all of this.
Yep.
Any one bit that is different here, any one path that was different, we wouldn't be here today. We are here to proof that 5D higher realm heaven space does come here, or else we wouldn't be in the capacity we are awake and aware right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree so much with the medical system. I have a series of little balls on my spine. I believe very strongly that they're actually because of what I do, and that I don't always move the energy through my spine, because your spine is your spiritual superhighway. I've got one really stuck here, and it's right where the Kundalini snakes meet for my third eye and crown chakra. Like, I don't realize how psychic I am. It's kind of annoying. But anyway, I shared that with my doctor. I told her what I thought my lumps were, because she wanted to medicate me and have surgeries and such done. And I said, no, I think they're actually have to do with my psychic energy, blah, 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 blah. Since I've done that, I can get no doctor to help me with anything whatsoever. they have, I think, put a little thing on my chart saying this lady is kooky, or she doesn't know what's going on, or something like that. So we're not going to help her because she won't take our medicines. Because I won't do the medicines, because I won't even take an Advil before a reading, because I don't know how it'll affect my abilities, and my abilities are for you guys, so not for me. So, and actually, if I'm doing a reading, I can't feel anything physically. It's the most awesome thing ever. If I'm like sick as a dog, boom, I'm fine during the reading. Then the minute they're done, boom, on the ground. So, anywho, I think you're absolutely right. I also would like to know, is that light, or do you actually have a bindi dot?
I paint music and I paint souls. So when I put anything on me, it is intuitive. So
Okay. I wasn't sure if that was the light, a trick of the light that was doing that, or you actually had
no,
something there. I was going to say,
that's
for
a
third eye was like, no,
six
like,
pointed, I believe, six-pointed star. There's one above, one below, and a blue dot in the middle. So I just intuitively, that's how I get up and go.
oh, and so you do
Sometimes I
that.
have war paint on. So hey,
Okay. I was just curious as to whether it was the light, and it was just like, wow, that's so cool. But it's also so cool because you intentionally did it with the idea that they told you to do it. So yeah, yeah, I agree with the whole medical thing too. And that's what can lead us to the homeless problem as well. Because so many people get on there, I'm in pain, I'm in pain. Here's an Oxycontin. This won't wreck your life. I've seen, I had a friend of mine who was a real estate agent. She broke her ankle. They gave her Oxycontin. I think it was 2 months later, she put a thing on Facebook, please help me. I'm addicted. She had sold all her furniture. She was a real estate agent, a respected real estate agent. So it can happen to absolutely everyone. Doesn't matter how established you think you are, you can fall into these things so incredibly easy. And I don't want to say it's all the medical system's fault on that one, but I think it's more of a societal thing. We have this idea that, okay, you're in pain, let's make that stop. Not, let's look at where you're in pain, why you're in pain. Like when I say my Kundalini snakes, I researched it. I thought, okay, what's with the neck? So I started doing research about the neck, and actually now I've rediscovered Louise Hay. It's like, why didn't I look at this light earlier? Because that woman knew what that was going on. She really, really did. Anyway, and I think she still does, to be perfectly honest. I have a connection with her, and I swear she gets in my head. Anywho, this idea that if it happens in the body, we got to shut it up. The body is the thing that tells the mind what the soul is trying to say that the mind does not figure out. And Mary Ellen, this is like her topic right here, is what the body tells you within the energy that you get trapped, and what happens within the mind shows within the body. Absolutely. So if we shut it up, then we don't help the mind. Then we're constantly in this circle of trying to figure out, oh, well, people actually die of these pains.
they do.
I know my grandmother.
They do, and a lot of I also do readings as well, and a lot of it is just, again, it's emotional, energy, motion, it's trauma that's stored in the body. So
Yep.
when we go back and look at those memories, we go back at where that emotion came in, it causes a habit that causes a blockage in the body. So I send energy healing that way. I just send whatever the perfect version of you from the heaven space, that's where it's getting sent. If it's being blocked, that's where we work on the blockage. It's not necessarily cause people saying all this dis-ease is caused by something else, and it's just like that. It's not caused by something external. Most of the time it's caused by stuff internal. Almost a majority of the time it's all internal, from the soul, from the perspective, from life, from the outside, what is being thrown on top of us and what we take in as truth and operate off of, which may not always be true.
It is reaction. It is how we react to what somebody else is doing that actually creates what happens within us. If someone, yeah, okay, like when I first started doing readings, if I'd say something to somebody and they'd go, no, no, I would have a reaction like, oh no, I'm not a psychic anymore. What happened? Boom, it's gone. Now, when they say no, I say, I must not be saying it to you correctly, because yeah, because I have this feeling that happens inside of me. I call it my knowing. And I can say something to somebody and they go no, and I say because it's not my information. I am just the superhighway. I am the cord for the telephone. I am like the string between two cups. I've actually called myself that one too, the string between two cups. So because I am that, and I am taking the information, it's not my information. So if someone says no, I think, oh, the string isn't communicating it right, because it absolutely has to be true because they told me. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
We forget that. Anyway, sorry, Laura.
No, no apologies. I wanted to just touch on Donald had shared earlier, drug numbness doesn't heal more damage and avoiding problems and pain. And it really goes back to the fact that the medical system is about cutting things out, and that is about compartmentalizing a part of us, oftentimes the part that we deem not good enough or that we take personally and say, oh, I must have got that wrong. Let's just leave that behind because it's not as good as the rest of me. And then we leave so much of ourselves that we fragment. And I believe that we came here to actually come into greater wholeness, but the medical system can't afford that because we'll only be the hues of us until we are the whole us. And going back to even your comment about your real estate friend and the Wizard of Oz connection, there was a poppy field where everybody fell asleep. So the poppies have been planted in the consciousness of the whole matrix system that requires Matrix, those that she thinks she's leading to the best of her abilities based on the belief systems that she has given her power to. Until then, she finds maybe that wasn't true. And then what to do from that point when your belief systems are no longer what you thought that they were is significant.
Wow, that's an excellent perspective on that one. I really love that one. And for some reason, the voices in my head are showing me how they actually got out of that poppy field in the book, where they get carried out by mice. Actually, they get the queen mouse and Dorothy negotiate. No, I don't know if it's Dorothy. I think it's the Scarecrow negotiates with her, and they pick up the lion and Dorothy because those are the two biological beings that are affected by the poppies. The lion and Dorothy are like, yeah, they're the anchors that weigh down the Tin Man Ministry. But yeah, they get carried out by little mice. So yeah,
It's a cat and mouse game. So there's symbolic significance there.
Terrified of the lion and to move him. They're perfectly happy to let him die. But the Tin Man and the Scarecrow say, no, that's not what we want. So yeah.
I love it. Ernie, you've got another question?
Yeah, I do. Actually, this is just something that I just thought of. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay coming through? Right? Can you hear me? Okay, okay. This is something that I just thought of. Bobbi, we need your help right now over this chat because I've got a question that only a person like you could help us with. Now, I know this sounds like a bunch of hocus pocus, but in fact, if you do research, Philippines is actually the most haunted place in the world. It really is. And, you know, JeH here is a real Filipino. Now, what she's told me is that to be a full-blooded Filipino, you have to be a descendant of one of the three main tribes. And there is just under the surface of the Philippine culture a very strong tribal connection. And in fact, we have seen tribal people walking around this city completely unclothed and completely unconscious of it. We never took any pictures out of respect for those people that they're human beings, but they don't know. Now the thing is if you look up online, this is a good question. They have an island full of witches. You can actually do research. It's factual. It's an island called Sikihor, where there's an island full of witches, and the people here are incredibly superstitious. They believe in aswangs, which are vampires that are cut in half. They have intestines come out. They have the ability to fly or take different shapes, or the white lady in the white dress. Now, even in terms of superstition, even her father, who works with a lot of concrete, all of the bridges are haunted because during World War II, a lot of them were built during that time period, and there's blood that got mixed into the concrete. Even her father will sacrifice a chicken to make the concrete strong. Now, you got to remember this is coming from their tribal nature. Now, the thing is there are ghosts there are real ghosts here and there are impersonators. Now, the Bellini tree is a very haunted tree. And up the road, there's a bell that hangs on this tree up the road. And there's a hammer that if you see a ghost, you ding the bell, and it's supposed to scare away the ghosts and the spirits and keep you safe. But it just happens that Bellini tree and the bell with the hammer is on a very dangerous curve where there are a lot of car accidents. And one time as I was driving by, I don't know if this was an impersonator or the real deal, but we were volunteering, sponsoring a basketball team, the Vindicators, and I was leaving my buddy's house real night after midnight. And I pulled out of a subdivision on the left-hand side. There was the white lady in the white dress, which is supposedly, according to JeH, an evil spirit. Now, the thing is I was never sure if it was the real ghost or if it was an impersonator, because they have both. They have impersonators, and they keep the legend alive, and sometimes maybe there are real ghosts. Now, the thing is I never saw it again. And I've told people about it, some of my friends, and they think I'm nuts. But I would like to be able to find it again, to actually take its picture to show other people that Ernie's not crazy. He really did see a ghost or an impersonator. Now, the one thing that I do know, why you're so special, Bobbi, is that if you continue to do the same things, there's an old saying, if you continue to do the same things, you'll continue to get the same results. If you keep asking the same people the same thing, you'll sort of get the same results. I could never find it again, but a lot of times I'd go out there on a motorcycle. I'd drive around the neighborhood looking for this entity or person. What do I have to do to see it again? Because my reputation is at stake. Nobody believes me. And so I want to drive around, take a picture of it. And I know they appear, but they always keep appearing in places that I can't seem to get it right again. The only person that would have the insight to know what to look for would be a person that would think differently than everybody else. Do you think you could help me, Bobbi, and give me some psychic insight into what I'm doing wrong to why I can't find it? Because literally we go out at night as a form of entertainment to go ghost hunting, trying to find the white lady in the white dress, and we never see it. Now, the thing is it sounds so far out, but really it's not. If you can see tribal people walking around naked downtown and bells on trees, these things do exist, at least here in this environment. Could you tell us what we have to do to find it? And yeah, she wasn't such a sleepyhead. She would vouch for me. So maybe you could be the one person that could point us in the right direction where nobody else seems to, because I haven't run into anybody that has the gifts that you have. And it's true, I really do want to be able to take a picture, but I've heard that Sherwood Hills is haunted. I've driven through there at night at about midnight. I've gone up the road where the white lady in the white dress appeared, and then there was a car accident that happened the day after. And I've driven another way where they've got a few haunted churches, and there's always there's always a lot of history behind some of these monasteries because they're about 200 years old, so I never seem to get it at the right moment. But if you look up on YouTube or Facebook, you can see videos where people or the spirit itself appears, and I'm trying to see if I can find it and take a picture. I just can't find it. What would you say? Because nobody knows the answer. It would take a special person that thinks uniquely to have the insight to be able to know. And that's where you could help me, because I'm not that good at figuring it out. And it's true. I promise it's not made up. It's true.
You're better than you give yourself credit for. Bobbi, what do you have to say?
Well, I actually have bells on all of my doors for that reason, because I don't want any evil spirits coming in behind people. So right there, I completely believe you. And the bell in the tree makes perfect sense to me. I'd have the bell in the tree too, but the bell in the tree would actually make them go away. because they don't like the sound. I don't know why. But I know this to be absolutely true. That's why every door I have, I almost wish someone had walked in my door so you could hear my bells, because every door has bells in my house, every door. And I actually think, first off, I think you want it too bad. I have to tell you that. That's what they kept saying in my head, because you want to take the photograph so that you can prove to other people that you're not insane. You don't need to prove that to anyone. You're not insane. I go and I actually do battle with demons in people's homes. Nobody has any proof whatsoever, but I know it's true. And no one could tell me different, because if they told me different, I wouldn't win. I would lose. So I also think too, these things, they're showing them out of the corner of your eye. Very, very often we can see them, but we cannot see them. We cannot see them head on unless we're supposed to. I would ask if you can take a photograph of it. Ask it, may I please photograph you so that I know I am not crazy? Not so I can prove to other people I'm not crazy, because you're not crazy, not in one least bit. And I don't know why they keep telling me I need to show you this. My little windmill from the Philippines. My daughter's roommate is from the Philippines, and I have a few Filipino clients. So I am very aware of but the Catholic side too, which Catholicism is one of the funnest religions, in my opinion. I don't want any religion, so I find them fun anyway, because that's how I see them as fun. But honestly, you did see it. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. I wish you were here, Bobby. The things that I've seen in the Philippines is one of the biggest surprises that blew me away.
Yeah.
I
England.
mean,
I went to England. I couldn't
we,
believe.
there is I've got pictures of this. True. There's a haunted monastery that was built 200 or 300 years ago, about 10 kilometers down on Governor's Drive. I was on my bike and it started raining, and there was lightning that was flashing behind the monastery. There was a picture of I guess the Madonna, or I guess they call it the Virgin Mary, because you're right, they are predominantly Catholic here. And lightning struck, and I took a picture of this haunted monastery right at the right moment, right when the lightning struck. And would you believe it that the light that was above the Madonna changed colors because of it? The picture was taken right during the flash of the lightning, and the Madonna changed colors, and I was able to reference the color to a painting that, have you ever saw the painting with the heart of Christ, and it shows like rainbow colors coming out, an old Catholic painting. I'm not really Catholic, so I don't know the lore, but I swear to God, the light that was above the Madonna was white, but when the camera took the picture through the lens, it had rainbow colors coming out similar to that painting. And I had it on, it's actually on the Camping and Hotel Club. If you look through the photographs, you'll see it. And in real life, that light bulb is white. It's not blue, yellow, orange. and it was so odd. That was the only light bulb that changed colors, was the one that was above Madonna. There was other lights in the area too. They didn't change colors. But so you see the reference to that. But yeah, but continue. I wish you were here. The things I could, learn from you, we would be amazed.
Actually, the way that they're showing me that, and I would agree with it, it's the same reason that you see the rainbow in the sky. That is a reflection of us. And I think it's the love that people put into the Virgin Mary in the Philippines. And because that love is real, it's an actual power. I call it the Care Bear stare. The love.
Where do I have to go to see the white lady in the white dress? She's known as an evil spirit, but if you look online, there's a lot of literature that's written about this entity. In their Filipino tribal culture, it goes back quite a few centuries, but it seems as if it's always repeated. Where could we go to see it again? Give us
before you go. Meditate before you go, attention, and ask that you get to see her and that she shows herself to you, and then go and do it. But honestly, I think you need altruistic reasons. I actually think your guides won't let you get that picture as long as you feel the picture validates, because you have to just know you saw it. Because you've already told us so many things that you've seen that are absolutely real and true. And the only reference point I really have is England, because I've been to England and I was shocked, absolutely shocked. Because here in Canada, I can tell you're dead, you're alive, you're dead, you're alive. I can really tell that very easily because dead people are kind of opaque. They don't have legs sometimes, they don't have heads sometimes, things like that. But living people, they're living. When I went to England, I was like, I'm confused for the first time in my life. I don't know who's dead and who's alive, and they're everywhere. So I can't even imagine the Philippines. And honestly, as you're telling me this too, I think occupations, the unrest, the treatment of the Filipino people during the Second World War, I think that's a little bit part of this. I think there's a lot of sadness and a lot of love that needs to be.
I've heard that ghosts will appear in areas where there's been a lot of trauma or hurt. Cavite is the province that we're in, Tres Martires, and it's the site of the 13 martyrs back from the Spanish-American Civil War, and they're buried in a shrine nearby. Cavite is the host of where nearly every single revolution ever got started, and in fact, it was just a couple months ago we discovered an abandoned battlefield. They had shell craters and like hundreds of unmarked graves. Very haunted in nature. We took pictures of it and uploaded it. You can see it. So some of these things are very, very real. One time we were driving by and there were some other people that were spooked on a couple of motorcycles. They drove past us and they said, go, 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 go. The next day I went back, I asked some of the street vendors, I said, well, what's the big deal? We don't have to drive that fast. And they said that some other people got spooked, that they saw a ghost. And I said, well, why did they get spooked here? Well, usually there's a mystery about where ghosts appear, that there's usually some kind of a story that goes behind it. Turns out that the area is an unmarked burial ground for children during World War II, where the family didn't have any money to erect headstones. But that's why you've got an industrial building here, a field with just a cow laying in it, and in a subdivision over here, and this little spot's got nothing in it. We would have never have known that it was an old burial ground,
Wow, yeah.
so there's always surprises.
Well, and when you have earthbound spirits, they actually attract those naughty energies that I talk about, the demonic like. And I use the word demonic like because people gloss over when I say demon. They don't when I say angel, but they do when I say demon for some reason. But
Bobbi, that makes pretty good sense to me, because if you think about it, wanting to see that entity again, to take a picture of it, it's really me being selfish because I'm looking to exploit it to show other people, wow. But you're right, you've got good insight, because I'm not doing it out of altruism or love. I'm wanting to use the entity. So you're right, I'm not asking for a blessing from it or some altruistic reason for it to appear. That's probably the reason why the damn thing keeps eluding me, that I can't see it, because I'm not going after it for the right reasons. I just want to exploit it and look cool because I got a picture of a real ghost to show off. But that's the one insight I would have never thought of. Maybe that's why. Because let me tell you, there's a gazillion videos. They've had people, like literally, Gia showed me a video on Facebook where they called the barangay, which is the local police, because there was a girl standing out on the side of the road pretending to be the white lady in the white dress. What was her punishment? She had to go on Facebook and apologize for being a ghost. That was her punishment. But we've never been able to find it. And I don't know if it was real or not, but maybe that's the insight that we were lacking, because for 6 months I've been driving around at night, never could see it. It always appears at some other place, like down by the volcano when we're over here, we never find it. But that's the one piece of thing I never thought of.
You of me. Yeah. And honestly, if I went to the Philippines and I saw it, I would send it home. Because it's torture to still be here. I would try to get
They're not nice. They're not nice. And entities. Gian will tell you a story, if she was awake, that when she was a young girl, there was an elderly woman that she lives in a very small village in the northern provinces of Cagayan, where there was an elderly woman that everybody believed she was a witch. And one of the things that they have in their culture. Because you got to remember, just underneath their culture is a tribal culture. Okay. And so a lot of these ideas are still just under the surface with the people. She believed that if you didn't greet the witch first, it had the ability to hex you. So as a little girl, Gia would always walk down the sidewalk, and whenever she'd see this old lady walking back to her little hut, she would always say hello first before the you know had a chance to hex her. So some of these things can be very real, but I would have never have thought of that. My own selfishness is what kept me from
Oh gosh,
seeing
I don't like
the
that. I'm
white
sorry, I
lady,
don't mean it in
you
your
know.
own selfishness. I'm sorry, I don't mean it as you're being selfish at all. No, I think you're
Well,
totally.
no, it makes sense to me because it's really a gift to be able to see a ghost. Not everybody could see one. I got the biggest kick out of it. So I never saw it again, but that one time. And maybe that's the reason why I didn't have the good intentions. And I would have never thought of that,
Thank you for
actually. I
sharing.
just thought the harder I tried.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your stories. And that is fantastic that you got a piece of wisdom that can save you some time for the life that you lead. Now that you don't have to be chasing after that which can find you if you stop chasing it. So that is a piece as well. I wanted to say that it has been an hour and a half. And
Wow.
so I want to say that I think it would be a phenomenal opportunity to come together again for another call. And I wonder if there the conversation about witches generally, I think, is something that is really important to actually bring to the fore on another call, because that topic itself, which witch are we talking about, and which craft are we talking about? Is it law? Is it medicine? Is it accounting? What's your craft? Is it arts? If we start to actually break it down to the ridiculous, we start to see the way that all of these concepts have been used to instill fear into us. And the culture is ultimately the way that it has been hijacked within the systems that are hacked. And to your comment about entity or about demon, I created an acronym because that's one of the things that I do. And I say they're dead entities mentalize only neurosis, because they just keep us in our heads. And if we're in our heads, we're not in our hearts, which is why today's call about homelessness and psychic abilities and the mental health connection ultimately was really where I wanted to set a framework to really be able to move forward so that we can have a better understanding of how to use experiences and concepts and community in order to have a shared experience that can uplift, elevate, and help us all see beyond the veils that can be seen to be evil in a way too.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I agree so completely. And it's almost as though the witch discussion can trail after this discussion, because the witch discussion lends to this discussion. Because when we look at the witch trials and what happened to those poor human beings, they were healers, counselors, midwives. I don't know if they actually ever burned a real witch. Because I tell you, if you're a real witch, you knew how to hide. You
Well,
weren't getting in there with the healers and getting burnt up. But entire villages of people were burnt in Germany. I've done a lot of research into the witch trials. I'm a little obsessed. Actually, I got all my witch books right over here. Because, yeah, I consider myself one. I call myself one. I've always called myself one. And not until now has it been a moniker that, yeah, woman in total control of herself. That's the acronym I use for witch. And I have to admit, I got that from Bob the Drag Queen from Drag Race. But he said, being in total control of yourself, that's a bitch. And a witch is a woman in total control of herself. So that's actually why I use that one, because to be the moniker itself was given to us by those who were persecuting us, rather than it's one that we chose and said, this is us. the hat, everything wasn't really something that witches were doing. It was something that was pressed upon as part of the persecution. But I agree completely, because the problem we're having right now with homelessness and people not being understood and being over medicated instead of being looked at in a proper sort of manner is, it's a direct result of this. It's a direct bang. This is what's happened thousands of years later. Is it thousands? It's more hundreds and thousands together. Let's put it that way.
Time is the ledger that ultimately thinks that it puts it into context and then frames that we think are the same because it follows a line, but BC, AC, and then without those precursors, ultimately whoever controls time is the one that gets to say what happened in the specific line.
Who controls time? There is only time here. And I actually, okay, I don't know why, but they're telling me to tell you this. I actually believe that people can reincarnate in different times. That if you die in 2024, that does not mean you'll reincarnate in 2034. God, that'd be 10 years. You really need some work, obviously. Or you could actually reincarnate into 1935, which terrifies me. Because I don't, certain times I'd want to reincarnate as a man.
Well, I'm sure you have many times, and
Oh, yeah, I have. I know of, yeah, I know of a few of my incarnations. I don't know all of them. I've been told how many there are, but I have only seen, for sure that I know of, 3. And then there's other ones I'm like, eh. So yeah, because incarnation and life, past lives are a different sort of thing.
fantastic. Well, I just posted to the notes that this call's recording will be posted to the Peaceful Inner Warriors United channel on YouTube. So if you grab that channel and subscribe, that will be very appreciated so that the channel can grow. And as it does, then we'll be able to actually go live. I have a channel under my name, Laura JeH Hamilton, and that has thousands of videos and it has more subscribers as well, but ultimately I am more limited there because I've said a lot more and I only started this channel more recently, and I want the Peaceful Inner Warriors United channel to be more community opportunities. I think that it's really important for us to learn how to play nicely together and to learn how to give everyone an opportunity who wants to share without oversharing or without interfering or interrupting with people's ability to express what they're saying as well. And I think that the only way to learn those skills are to practice them. So that's what I really want to create more opportunities to do. So I'm grateful to each of you for showing up today and contributing and participating the way that you each did. And I am also willing, I'm interested or open to, if anyone's interested in joining the Peaceful Inner Warriors United Assembly group on Telegram, it would be great for you to be able to do that as well so that we can move away from the con video game where it's putting us into reactive states of mind and actually then become more creative in nature instead. So it would be an honor to have you as part of those communities and to also know what communities you're involved in. Earlier in the call, we talked about the Hub for Humankind that's happening in May, which is going to happen here at Souls Path Retreat Center. And that's an opportunity for us to be able to come together and not be in a gallery, but actually in the same room. So it would be awesome if we weren't just Zooming, but we were actually booming together. So thank you so much, Bobbi, for all of your insights today as well, and being willing to talk about this interesting connection that is far more relevant. And you know, when you said earlier, and we got into the 15-minute cities talk, and you know, homelessness being making more sense for people to be in the city centers, I think it's also important to kind of recognize the fact here in Canada, at least, the MAID service of medical assistance in dying being something that is very aligned to the displacement and disenfranchisement of people who don't understand and don't feel understood, and then what comes from feeling like we don't matter, when the reality is that we truly all do, even if we are, deemed crazy or seen to be out of the norm for what is normal, except for that which we're more comfortable with because we're familiar with it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree very much. Yeah. And that, yeah, when it's funny when you bring up MAID, because because, I think death is great. So that one's a toughie for me, but it's not at the same time. I always think death is the sweet release, is the caterpillar to butterfly. But I also know that there is a suicide realm. And if you
Absolutely.
leave before you're supposed to, you get a lot of this from them. So I actually always see it like it's a Catholic school, but the angels are running it and they just stare at you. Yeah. But you do get a mental health pass every now for those. Yeah. If you have schizophrenia and you take your life, they're like, yeah, really sorry. We didn't fix this. And so, yeah, whoops, our fault. So, and they let them through. Things like that will happen. So, yeah. And shameless self promotion. So my YouTube channel, it's actually Bobbi Rowntree Born Medium. I always thought it was just Born Medium, but I've come to find out it's Bobbi Rowntree Born Medium, and I'm at Born Medium on YouTube. So I'll follow your channel too, and we can link, because
Yeah.
I've been wanting to link with other channels. You're supposed to link with other channels. I think that's awesome. I love the idea of a community. Yeah. It's a lonely road. It really is. It's a lonely road for everyone. But actually, I have to admit, I'm never ever lonely, ever lonely. If I start getting lonely, they're like, "Oh, are you lonely?" That's what will happen. So yeah. So yeah, okay, yeah. But I agree. Yeah, tough. It's yeah. I love the ideology of the 15-minute city, only because I'd love to be able to walk to the grocery store, because that's what it looks like to me. That's the only that's my only thought with that, because I have to get in a car to go to get groceries.
Yeah.
That's
And
the
so
thing I
does
like
our
about it.
but it's just more so understanding what the constraints that come and the requirements that come in order to get into the buildings if you are in controlled states. And there's a big difference between being in control of our energy or someone else's compared to being in charge of it.
Oh yeah, I would much rather have my own garden. I grow my own food. I have a very limited diet, things like that. I have my own space. Oh, you guys should see my yard. It's awesome. Actually, I put it on my YouTube channel all the time because it's full of fairies. So it really is. Anyway, so yeah, I can understand that. When I think of the 15-minute city, I think, how do I grow? I have to grow my food. I
Yeah,
absolutely must. So how can you do that in that tiny little space?
that's
You'd
the
have
point.
to Yeah, you'd have to rely on somebody else to grow your food, and then you don't know what they're putting in it and things like that. So, yeah. Okay,
Dependence
okay.
is
Thank
an
you so much.
aim of that which is outside of us, and we're seen to be the game within the Hunger Games we're then playing.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Have you read those books?
No, I watched the movie.
Oh, read they're my son's favorite book series. So when my kids like something, I move into it because I want to know what the heck my kids are looking at. They're all in their 20s now, so it doesn't even matter. But yeah, I read The Hunger Games, and oh my goodness. Oh, I can't even get some of those images out of my head that would grow from reading it. It's a horrible idea, absolutely horrible. The thought that we could get to that, I don't want to say terrifies me, because what we fear we begat. I move away from that. I move into a different sort of utopia where everyone understands each other in a different kind of way. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, grateful to have had the opportunity to share this space today with each of you. So thank you all. And if anyone would like to join the next time, make sure you're on the Telegram channel, and I will make sure Bobbi Rowntree's information is in the description of the replay, that you can share away with all those to whom you believe this call would be valuable, and we'll consider it a part one with Bobbi and friends. So thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you. This was a lot of fun. Can't
Yeah.
wait till the next